right. So,
Feeling a whole different mood now.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because like as soon as when I arrived and like all the cameras were there and everything, it was like it felt like, oh, I'm getting into like a TV studio. So it's like that is one thing. And now that we're sitting in just the two of us and everything is settling down, it's like, oh, I'm sitting here with Terence.
Right.
Mm.
That's a mood I want. Yeah. It's going to be sitting here with you. I'd love to just start with finding out, like, in this moment, what's alive for you? Like being here, all of the things you just mentioned, a few of those.
Yeah. So actually in this moment, what's alive for me is actually a point of pressure in my chest because there's actually a point of trigger that I got. It's nothing to do with you, but looking up the location on Google Maps, basically just saw a picture that was like brought up a lot for me. And I think that's present with me right now. There's definitely present with me. So a bit of tightness in my chest, which is a lot different from the mood that I walked in and earlier where I felt very joyful and playful and lighthearted. And I guess the two are present in me.
Yeah.
And the curiosity, I'm really curious of how this is going to go. And yeah, enjoying the really beautiful view that you have out there.
It's amazing.
Have been happy to be here at your place.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm glad to have you here as well. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I appreciate the nuanced perspective of the different parts of yourself that are here, that you're being with, and an acknowledgement of that part that's tight. And I have an imagining of this emotional connection to this image that you saw, and the contrasting of that, which sounds heavy, to this experience of lightness and joy and excitement and the good day that you woke up with.
Yeah, oh my God, very good day. Yeah. And even to go, and this might be a topic that we can explore, is with the years having learned to expand so that this can be present. And it doesn't have to be my entire world right now. It is a part, this is present, and there's so many other things.
Yeah.
And enjoying the contrast. There's the lightness and there's the acknowledgement of a tightness.
I love that word expansion with that. I really distinctly recall that you're saying that at a time when I was fairly new to coaching and I was going through a breakup. And I had a client come to my home and I had to cancel the session because I was so taken by the emotions of my breakup that I'm like, I can't be with you now in this way. And I looked back on that at the time when I was reflecting. I was like, I really honored myself and being fully in that experience of that grief and the challenges, the sadness, the anger, the frustration that was with me. And now when I look back, because I've gone through some pretty challenging situations in the last decade, and I can still sit and be with the client, and both can be present. I can have part of me that's really feeling the grief or the challenge or the pain and still be with someone else. And I chalk it up to my ability to be expansive, to contain more parts of myself, to integrate those voices and allow them all to be present simultaneously. And so there's parts of me that are angry, there's parts of me that are sad, there's parts of me that are scared, so on. And one of my defining aspects of being a man is to be able to contain more and more of myself and to not allow for the, or not, it's not even to not allow for it, to practice the skill of being able to contain it without the overflowing, without the dramatic expression of something. And not to say the dramatic expression is bad, but my desire is to be able to feel it fully and still remain present and conscious at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally hear you, and I completely agree with you. And the words that I'm picking up on is the integrating all the parts and allowing them to be here. And when I hear you say without dramatically bring out its kind of without acting out. It's like, I acknowledge all these different parts of me, so I don't need anybody else to acknowledge them for me. Therefore, I don't have to potentially make a scene so that my internal state is acknowledged by someone else. It's like, okay, I'm feeling this right now. How can I be with this? How can I be here for myself? And if I can be here for myself, then I don't have to drag someone else into my situation by, for example, reacting to my internal state and acting out by being angry or passive aggressive or something that will then involve someone else. And if they have some sort of a people pleasing pattern or rescuer thing, oh, what's up with you? Can I do something? Can I help? Can I rescue you? Can I feel purposeful by jumping into your internal security?
It's a pretty cool thing to realize. I love what you say. It makes a lot of sense to me. And a younger version of me would be constantly seeking approval and validation of what my internal experience was by sharing it with someone else and having them tell me it's okay.
Yes.
I know what that's like. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm okay. And yeah, another one of my kind of markers for manhood or for a maturing masculine presence is to not seek for permission from outside for me to feel what I'm feeling.
Yeah. There's totally agree. It's, I'm hearing two things. On one hand, the permission, and on the other hand, the validation. And I feel that by integrating a word that you used earlier on, if I integrate all these parts of me, I don't need permission from anyone else. I can do it myself. It's already integrated. I don't need it to be validated. It's integrated. It's all here. It's all valid. It's all part of me.
Exactly.
And it makes me think when you say integration, I think, so the group, the men's group I told you I was part of, so it's an I group. And actually I didn't really know what it meant, but it's an integration group. So kind of this part where with the work that we do, we show up in this group in order to integrate more parts of ourselves, which is, and if what I've been telling you about and what I'm fascinated and maybe slightly obsessed with at the moment is the archetypes, the masculine archetypes, and everything coming from Jungian psychology, and the idea or the theory that as if you integrate your shadow, then you can rise into the fullness of the archetype, of the energy. And if you do not integrate the shadow, then the shadow possesses you. And then this is when I would have shadow behaviors and like be a tyrant or being a weakling or being a masochist or sadist or something without knowing that it's happening, because it's not integrated. It's just happening. I have no awareness of it. And this would be happening if I have not integrated that part of me. And so by integrating it, I can notice, oh, there's this that's happening. There's that's happening. There's this part of me that's showing up. There's that part of me that's showing up. And I can acknowledge it myself without needing any permission from anyone, without needing any validation from anyone. I can just be here with myself.
And it's interesting with the shadows for me, as I hear you describing that the shadow possesses us. We don't even really realize, like the tyrant probably doesn't perceive himself as a tyrant necessarily.
Absolutely does not. He identifies as the king. I am the king.
Correct. But the experience of the outer reality of the world gives us that reflection back so that we can see our shadow. And for us to be able to integrate the shadow experiences that in some way possesses us, we leverage the outer world and the reflections that come back at us to recognize, oh my God, I am showing up this trait. And it's not so much for seeking permission, approval, or validation, but an awareness of how is the world reflecting me back to myself. And without that reflection of another person, me in a conversation with you, and you're like, wow, you seem really identified with this idea of being a king. Like, what does that mean to you? And I'm like, well, and I may give a description of what the tyrant is of the king energy. And in that, I can then get a view into myself of, wow, this is not an integrated version. This is my shadow that's playing out, and I get to see that through the eye of another.
Yeah. So totally hearing you on that. And I believe that you have this view because you have integrated it. You are able to know that there's this, you know that you have different parts of yourself and that we all have shadow aspects of ourselves that may arise and may find expression through our behaviors and our conversations. And I also heard you say that you can have this information by how the world is responding to me and how it's reflected to me in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did I hear that correctly?
I believe so.
And so my understanding of these energies is if I am kind of possessed, quote unquote, by the shadow aspect, I'm having shadowy behaviors like being a bit of a tyrant in my life and like coming down all threat and not allowing other people around me to grow because I feel threatened by it. When I was in that position, when I was in the moments in my life where I was possessed by these behaviors, I didn't have the capacity to see that I was. And if it was pointed out at me, I had no awareness. And at this point in my life, I had complete lack of awareness of myself and my own behaviors. And so when I was, for example, in the active Shadow King, the Tyrant, I was afraid. This is a behavior that's guided by fear, right? And it's the fear that I'm afraid that my position may be threatened. I'm afraid that I don't feel that I have a grasp on my inner kingdom, on my life, on my outer kingdom, of what's around me. And because I'm afraid of it, I will like really act out on that and like maybe aggressively. I would not understand that what was happening around me. First of all, I did not know it was happening. I did not know that was my behavior. I thought I was doing the right thing. And if it was reflected back to me, I didn't understand it.
So, but there was some point where you did understand. And awareness to me it's the entire game of the human experience. We become more and more aware of our shadows as time goes by. And one of the necessary parts that I was illustrating was we leverage the Maya, the illusory world that we are constantly receiving as a reflection of ourselves, of what we project out. And at some point, that reflection comes into focus. Before it was blurry, you couldn't see your tyrant energy. And yet without that outer world reflecting it back in some way, in some person's reaction, in some statement that was made, they were the keys to help you bring it into focus so you could see your reflection, become aware of your tyrant energy, and then put awareness into the integration of it because you desire to be whole and complete.
Yeah, I hear you, and it makes a lot of sense. And it's not exactly how it happened. For me, I had to reach a rock bottom. I just didn't get it until I reached that rock bottom, and then I kept on digging.
Effective strategy.
And it was, honestly, what got me there was major depression, existential dread, paralyzing anxiety, and this realizing whatever I'm doing, whoever I'm being is not working. And like real work is like, I am enough. At some point, I was not enough. It didn't work. The person who I was being in the world was not working. And it got me to a rock bottom. And it's at the rock bottom that I went, it was just very obvious to me, I need to do the work. I need to do the work. I need to go to the men's groups. I need to do the healing. I need to get a coach. I need to get a mentor, because there was like, I just couldn't do it on my own. I was just very obvious. It's not working. And through doing the work and then learning, reading the books, doing the work like the King Warrior Magician Lover book, and then learning about these energies, then doing and practicing that work over and over and over again weekly in the group, I got a better understanding. And then I went, oh, that's what's happening. That's what the tyrant energy is. That's what the weakling energy is. That's what, like, because there's a lot of, when I went into one shadow, then I would go into another shadow. In the love energy, when I go into the shadow, I go into the addict. I want more partying, more sex, more drugs, more coffee, more whatever. And when I go there, then I go, well, then I don't show up for work the next day. So then that's not their energy. That's shadow warrior. And then when I'm there, I'm like, oh, whatever happens, I'm in all the shadow aspects. So it's about noticing that. And only through awareness, and for me, it went through study, through working, doing the work in men's groups.
Appreciate it. I'm really enamored with the archetypes as well. Yes, that I often use that contextual awareness when meeting someone, of seeing when they describe what their challenges in life are, which one of the quadrants is this existing in? And there's a deflated or inflated, and can track back to, the childhood experiences, a later framework, lay the ground for this particular thing to come up. And the nice guy is probably one of the ones that I looked into the most, as the immature lover, the adult child.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. And the way that the relationship of the bonding experience and the safety, security, the affirmation that the mother was ideally by the child expected to have been providing. If that expectation wasn't met by the boy child, then these patterns of a shadowy lover archetype start to come through. And one of the manifestations of that is this nice guy persona, wanting to always please the feminine. Because if I don't please the feminine, I might not survive, because money may leave me.
Oh my God. Did you read the No Mr. Nice Guy?
Such a beautiful book.
Yeah, that was a big part of my recovery, actually. I went, oh my God, yeah. And I did all the exercises, maybe not all of them, but some of them, and it was so powerful. And yeah, it's totally that. I need to please the feminine because I need to please mommy. I need to please. In school, I only have female teachers, so I need to please the teacher. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. So I learned that my survival relies on pleasing a lady.
I think it's a story of a lot of men, and a lot of boys. A lot of these men that are still boys. A theme that has been really resonant with my audience on social media has been this idea of little boys that are walking around in these man suits, and I had very explicitly a client say to me that he says, how do I mature this inner teenager that lives in my mind so I can be a man? And this is a 36-year-old man that still identifies as a teenager in his patterns of behavior, as needing to please people around him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have quite a few male clients like that too. And it's really, but it can even be, how can I heal that 4-year-old that's within me? So it's like, sometimes it's like the teenager, so there's the 4-year-old, the 6-year-old. It's a lot of that work with the inner child. And I love that you bring up the inner child, because now actually what I'm coming to is the realization that most of it is inner child work. Like, what are these things that happened in my childhood that I got an imprint of and that really shaped my reality? This thing that happened when I was 4 and that shaped my entire reality, and that are still shaping my reality as an adult. So yeah, that is also a really, really deep world.
Yeah,
Deep work. Yeah.
I'd hazard a guess to say that it's never ending. My experience is that the past, if we enter into this concept of time's an illusion, where can you identify where the past is or where the future is? There's no place that we can say it exists right now. It's gone.
In my memory.
But your memory of it and my memory, even if we track back to the moment you walked in the door, you have a memory of that and I have a memory, and they're different.
Yeah.
And so where does it actually exist, the true account of it? And maybe it's in the mind of God. But we have this infinite experience of time that no longer exists, and this charge that happened in certain moments that if we didn't have the capacity in that moment to integrate, it still lives in us in the present moment. We're carrying it right now. And all it takes is a memory or a picture that you see to bring you back into connection with that part. And the present moment, always in service of you integrating. And then there's people that talk about past lives and myriad past lives, maybe infinite past lives, that it all is contained somehow now. And the depth of our awareness gives us access to that. And the unresolved charge being the game of how to feel those feelings that haven't yet been felt, that are still living within me, maybe from this lifetime, maybe from when I was 1 year old, 15 years old, my last lifetime when I was unjustly imprisoned, whatever it is. And we get the opportunity in this moment now, the only moment that ever existed, ever will exist now, to feel it. And that, as I said right in the beginning, that expansion of my capacity to be with the different parts of myself and to feel them. And I've also noticed the cyclical nature of the way that these experiences come up in our lives. When there's a moment when I have a near miss on a scooter, and this fear response, and I'm like, wow, that seems to happen about every 6 months. I have this experience of something like this. And these charges that live inside us seem to have an amplitude, they have a frequency, and they have a duration. And one of the ways I can tell for myself when I am integrating these experiences is that all of these measurements, the amplitude, the frequency, duration, all reduce. And so something is happening every 6 months, and it takes me a day to recover from it. And it's really loud, and it takes over my mind. That when I start meeting it, I turn into it, start feeling it, letting that charge be digested and integrated. Then the experience might not happen every 6 months. It might only be every year. And then instead of it taking over my mind for a day, it's like, it's just, a few hours, and it doesn't take me over quite. And then as I keep turning towards it, then it starts to reduce down, and the charge is integrated. And the life force that was held in that charge in that event is now available for me to live with greater fulfillment in the moment.
Oh, absolutely. You're preaching the choir.
It is common knowledge among those of us that have started to turn toward our suffering. Say this again. It feels like this concept is common knowledge for those of us that have started to turn toward our suffering. My experience of many people is that suffering is something to be avoided. It's painful, it's uncomfortable. We've got methods to distract ourselves from our suffering.
So many.
We've got TV, we've got drugs, we've got all things. And there's also people that are willing to help us to avoid our suffering. Like, let me give you a surgery that's going to fix your problem of not having enough breast mass, or you're suffering over this. We can change your physical reality, your chemical reality, your psychological reality, so you don't have to suffer this.
So you can avoid yourself. Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I'd love to get back on this, confronting this thing that comes back in our life. Because I told you earlier on, so I felt this tightness, right? Because I saw a picture that reminded me of a memory. It was basically a memory of an ex. And I'm noticing as I'm about to completely heal and release that, I notice just life is sending me loads of reminders. And it's ridiculous. It's like all on point. It's like I can't avoid it. So it's like, for example, I want to go to this event. I want to go to this event. Oh no, it's like for example, like, so I want to go to this event. Oh no, there's a trigger point here. Okay, so I'll go to this one. Oh, same trigger point. And it's like, everything is coming back. And in like a few amount of days, it's like everything is coming to me, whereas it was absent of my life for a long time. So I'm like, clearly I have to address that. And this was actually happening as I decided to work with a medicine. And as I made the decision to work with a medicine, a friend who offered me a session, and I know as soon as the commitment is made, it's already working. And then all the things are coming back, the memories and the charges and everything. So I get to address that wound. And knowing that even what is activating that charge, where you were describing the amplitude, the duration, etc., just even what has really helped me is understanding that whatever I think, that is the problem. For example, that ex-partner. No, it's actually not that. She is just a trigger. which is activating something from my childhood. So how far does this go in my childhood? And for a long time, so the biggest one, so what took me to this rock bottom, what I used to reach this rock bottom was the end of a relationship and lost love and lost opportunity and blah, blah, blah. And what really, and the grief of that, and what really supported me was realizing that it's not the loss of a relationship, it's the loss of love. And that loss of love was triggering a loss of love from my childhood. And realizing, so I wasn't grieving a relationship in the present. I was grieving, I was accessing the grief of an inner 4-year-old. Basically, when I was 4, at some point, something happened. I thought my mom had died. So just imagine a 4-year-old who thinks, my mom is dead. Massive grief, fear, completely terrified. Like, I didn't have too much relationship with my brother or my father. It was like really with the mother, like really the child attached to the mother. Boom, she's no longer there. Or the belief. Anger, fear, terror, sadness, grief, resentment, frustration, it defined my whole relationship to the world and to women. And to my mother.
Right. And so what you're pointing out is that this charge was the real charge. It was the core fear that you had built another one on top, another one on top.
Absolutely.
And in this experience, you recognize that all of these other fears that have happened, this fear of loss of love, are all in service to you, directing it back to this moment where there was this huge charge, which was overwhelming for your 4-year-old self. So it still exists in you and is still waiting for you to come and love it. And the way that we can love our inner child the best is to come in and be with them and empathetically feel with them that charge they weren't courageous enough or capable of feeling at that time.
Absolutely. And I'd be even more precise and be with that child and feel his grief. When I access the grief of my inner child and feel it, that's when my adult can access true joy. Because you spoke earlier on about when I access that energy and release it, then I have all this extra energy that's available. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And when you also use the word overwhelming, so that emotion was overwhelming for the 4-year-old. So I kind of held it all in, bottled it all up, and then just put layers of protection over and over so I would never feel that because it was too much. Until I did my breathwork training and I was actually facilitated by a therapist who kept me out of my head and going in the body, because all these memories, this energy is stored in the body, and it came up and wow, was that intense. And yeah, that's the work that people like you do, like creating safety. How can we create safety? And that's the question that I can ask you. How do you create safety for people to go and access the grief of their inner child?
Yeah. There's a bunch of different ways, and I appreciate that.
I'd love to hear about it.
All right. Well, there's a few things. First, I think setting context is one of the most important things, because as much as being a coach, being a mentor, I'm with someone in their experience. I can't do the heavy lifting for them. It's not, if people could pay me millions of dollars and I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't feel this feeling for you. At the end of the day,
you can't heal me.
I can't. I love the idea of anyone trying to heal me. I claim that responsibility for myself. And one of the first strategies is to help them understand that it's their journey.
Yeah.
And on that note, there's the story of Humpty Dumpty, which is a story I often tell my clients to help them understand. And the story is Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again.
Yeah.
And so our egos, our soul, perfect and beautiful as it is, came into ego form and elevated itself in stature, thinking it was something maybe it's not, and then took the fall of pride, shattered itself into pieces, and all of these overwhelming experiences as we go on our journey to unconditional love and acceptance of ourselves as we are. We have all these pieces that we have to pick up. And yet all the king's horses and all the king's men, all the power of the outer illusory world cannot do that heavy lifting for you. And that's the journey for Humpty to turn towards his broken self and to start picking up the pieces on his own and putting himself back together.
Yeah. So what does the song say then? How did he put himself together again in the song?
I don't know if there is a version to that.
Oh, damn. Humpty Dumpty is like still broken on the floor.
It's the riddle. It's the riddle of life. How do we go about putting ourselves back together again?
That's awesome. I love that because I saw actually the scene in Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland where Humpty Dumpty falls. I read Bunny breaks, and I was like, I don't know the rest of the story.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if there is a rest of the story. There might.
Wow. You're right. Yeah. It's, no one else can do it for us. We got to go and feel the feeling. And that is something else. So that kind of so something that happened is when I grew up, I thought, all right, how do I get this external validation? I was a massive rebel. So I went the rebel way all the way. And then I went to do studies. I'm like, I'm getting all this external validation from society because I got this business degree and this and that. That's great. But I was seeking this external validation and from the general mainstream message of society. But the general mainstream message is also, don't go feel your feelings. Don't feel sad. Feel joy. I remember there was this BMW advertisement that was literally, you would see a BMW drive, and in the end, they would say, joy. I think that was about it. That was the main message. And so the message being, if you want to feel joy, buy this. Damn, if you just feel the joy, just learn how to feel your emotions. But when I didn't have access to joy, it's because I had cut my access to my emotions because I was feeling mostly grief and anger and disgust and whatever. And so I was like, all right, feelings, not great. I don't like my experience of life when I'm feeling, so I'll just wall up everything. There's some therapy, blah, blah, blah. And then when I finally access my grief, oh, joy's here again. So it's like this message of, don't feel your feelings. Don't feel sad. Boys don't cry. It's like just...
Yeah, I think it's one of the greatest tragedies of our culture is the denial of the importance of suffering. And that suffering is something that we can cure.
Oh, wow. Wait, I just want to repeat what you just said. The denial of the importance of suffering. Wow. Why do we deny that?
It's almost like denying the importance of fertilizer, manure, of shit in the process of growing things.
Yeah. The denial of the importance of boredom. Creativity happens through boredom.
We look at any of the things, whether it's fear, whether it's shame, whether it's frustration, whether it's grief. Any of these emotions, for me, when I've gone in and explored them, and with the many clients that I work with, when they also have the courage to honestly, innocently, genuinely, sincerely look and feel those feelings, there's so many gifts held within them. And it does take courage. It seems to be the underlying courage, determination, discipline, these masculine attributes of being able to penetrate into our suffering, to open it, to feel it, the feminine aspect of being then able to receive and be in it without the gender of having to fix it, just to be in the experience, allows for us then to gain the gifts that are held within. And it's unfortunate that our culture has told us that with drugs, with distraction, with the BMW that's going to provide you with joy just by driving it.
It looked really good.
That you don't have to, and the advertising world is full of this. Denial of suffering, embrace happiness.
Yeah.
And the very funny thing to me about it all is that these states that they say should be eternal, that somehow I should be able to attain happiness and stay there forever. Permanence of happiness. Yeah. And there's this illusion that's being promoted to us. It's being sold aggressively to us through advertising that if you're not happy all of the time, something's wrong with you. With you. Fuck you particularly.
Fuck you. Buy this thing.
Feel bad that you're not happy, and I have the solution for your happiness. Now give me your money, and then when you're not happy after you have this thing, you have this moment of happiness, then we're going to get you on the addiction train.
Yeah.
And you'll just keep buying more stuff from
There's a new mail coming out.
Is the new iPhone out yet? I really want to get it.
I really want to be happy. Yeah, there's this. I love that you say that and specifically use the word happy, because and I'd love to talk about that, because before I used to value happiness so much, and I actually watched a thing recently, a documentary, a psychologist or therapist or psychanalyst, whatever, speaking about that, and it's saying people who value happiness highly have a higher probability of being depressed. Because I want to be happy, I don't have it, and then I'm missing something, and then the whole story, something's wrong with me, etc. I mean, I'm kind of oversimplifying the thing here. And the other thing that I believe is more important, and there was a really beautiful, I think, conversation or article written by Yuval Noah Harari saying at the beginning of COVID, he was saying, value purpose. Because happiness is such it's kind of when you reach this subtle balance of all my needs are met, all my desires are fulfilled, or a lot of them, and then I'm happy. But then just one thing goes out, and then kind of happiness degrades and changes. And so what is much more stable than that is purpose. If I'm on a mission, or for example, parents, they have a purpose, and they want to provide for their children, for example, that creates a lot of resilience. If the two of us are connected to our mission, you're on your mission, connected to, what's your mission statement? Do you have a mission statement?
Yeah, to have every man in the world as part of MensCoach is one of them.
Amazing. So you have your mission, you're going on your mission, and then whatever happens and creates some discomfort in life, and something is confronting, something is upsetting, etc., you have a mission. Just carry on your mission. You have purpose, and you have motivation and drive every day.
So I'd love to speak on that, because it feels like such a relevant topic. And the idea of happiness, I'm in agreement with. It's an ephemeral experience. It doesn't last. And you said the grounds for it is that all my needs are fulfilled. But I've found that actually it could be random. There could be me. I love seeing babies and children fall over. It tickles me in a particular way. My inner sadist enjoys. But I'm happy in that moment. I could be, sad, demonstrated, and happiness can arrive in a moment, and then it departs very quickly as well. The attachment to happiness is almost or the striving after it as an end is trying to hold a beach ball underwater, and it's we'll get exhausted and we'll hop back up, and we won't be able to sustain it. And then that leads to, I think, one of the key aspects of bipolar disorder in this manic depressive state. When people are in this mania and they're super happy, they attain this, but it's such a drain on themselves to maintain that they deplete themselves and they go into these long bouts of the depression afterwards. It's a balancing act. What I have found in my own investigations is that there's this balance point in the middle. And that balance point can become a bandwidth that we can expand and contain within it are concepts such as peace, contentment, fulfillment, bliss, and they're not happy, nor are they sad. It's a different experience. It's like the third side of the coin. If happiness was one side, depression was the other side. This third side, which we can then thicken to become more of our experience, is this peace, contentment, blissfulness of not a charge of needing something to be different from the way it is. I don't have any preferences in this moment. What is here is enough. And the big challenge I have with Yuval Noah Harari, I think is his name, isn't it?
Yeah.
It aligns a lot with other things that I've seen him say, which seems to position humans as being like automatons. They're not very much human expressions. They're just these machine-like beings. And purpose is such a purely masculine driver for people.
Yeah, it's the warrior energy.
It's the warrior energy. But the issue that I have with it is, where is the fulfillment in that? If I'm on purpose, I'm like a train on a track, just heading in a direction. Am I looking out the window and enjoying the view while I'm doing it? And my experience of his writings and his take on, Schwab's view for the future is that humans in and of themselves don't have a lot of value other than what they can do.
Oh.
And so purpose, sure, I think it has from the masculine perspective, but then enjoyment.
That's a pretty good point. I'd love to speak to that.
I want to finish what I was saying.
Yeah.
And enjoyment being more the feminine aspect, and the idea of enjoying oneself, enjoying myself, and to break up that phrase of enjoy in myself. And regardless of whether I'm on purpose or off purpose, the feminine aspect is the thing that fills up the container of purpose with joy.
I love it. I'd love to speak to that. Are you complete?
I'm complete.
All right. Are you open to me disagreeing with you?
Go for it.
Okay, so I love that you point that out because I love the writings by Yuval Noah Harari, and you're right. Now, purpose is the warrior energy who takes his mission from the king, and then he's on purpose, and he's the energy of doing, right? And then I love that you brought this up and you actually confronted that idea, because then you're right. In order to be fulfilled and stable, is what brought up in the beginning, being an integrated man and integrating, for example, the 4 masculine archetypes, king, warrior, magician, lover, and especially integrating the king energy, whose purpose, his function is to create order, to create order, and share blessings and fertility, abundance, being all-inclusive, being affirming of oneself, of others, having this genuine wish for the happiness of all others, of everyone. And from being grounded in that energy, then being able to step into the warrior, I create order in my week, and then I go into warrior mode. Like, that time is the time where I'm going to be working and crunching and being on purpose. And then stepping into the magician, which is the counselor of the king, which is, for example, at the end of my day or at the end of my week, reflecting on what happened, how can I do things better? And what I loved, I was reading the book, The King Within, from Robert Moore. And when he explained all of that, then he said, then the lover energy, which is the energy of connection to beauty, to emotions, to beauty, to fulfillment, connections to friendships, to pleasure, sensuality, sexuality, dance, art, self-expression, sexual expression, all the things, the arts, the beauty, everything that you want, which is to me the enjoyment. And he's saying that energy is the one that makes everything else worth it. Integrating the king and the shadow king, integrating the warrior and the shadow warrior, integrating the magician, the shadow magician, all this would not be worth it if we didn't integrate the lover energy in its fullness and this is shadow form, so that we actually get to enjoy, because that's where the enjoyment happens. And so that's where I'm actually in disagreement with quite a lot of people, actually. So I've heard that enjoying and embracing emotions is a feminine energy, and maybe on some aspects it is, but according to the book King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, it is the lover energy, the lover archetype, which is connection to emotions, which is, for example, in an I group, it's the first round, it's a lover round. I speak about, I can do a check-in, so with emotions. So it can be, they use often the pious check-in. So how do I feel physically? How do I feel intellectually? How do I feel emotionally? How do I feel spiritually? And even sexually. And that can give, then I'm connecting to my emotions, sharing with other men, and then everybody can have a sense of where I'm at in this moment. And so I feel it's also a masculine energy. What do you think about that?
The image that came to mind was the yin-yang symbol. And if the masculine was the white part, then the black eye of the yin-yang would be the lover archetype within it. So it's still part of the masculine side, and yet it's the feminine aspect of the masculine.
Interesting. I like it.
So, but that's the image that came into my mind to give myself understanding. And they are very feminine traits. To one of the aspects of the lover is to not have any boundaries, to dissolve into the moment, to merge with the
I want to dissolve in the infinite bliss of oneness.
And is that not a beautiful description of what feminine energy is?
Yeah. Wow. I never thought about the love energy as having no boundaries. Thanks for pointing that out.
I see the lover and the warrior as like antithesis of each other. The warrior is all about creation of boundaries, and the lover is all about dissolution of boundaries. and they balance each other and they're necessary. The lover gives the warrior the purpose, and the warrior gives the lover the means to be able to feel himself in this without and dissolving.
And it'd be when you're in, absolutely. And when also people in warrior energy and they're working and they can, like sometimes people are working and they want to get shit done and they don't care about other people's feelings. This would like bring the lover with the warrior helps you work more productively in teams because you're also realizing, oh, wow, maybe there's a way of expressing this that will make people feel more connected and more desirous of getting this mission done rather than you got to fucking get this shit done or else.
So I want to pivot a little bit. And something that struck me earlier on in this conversation was the way that you use language.
Mm-hmm.
And when I would say something, you would say, I hear you, and you would say the phrase, I get to. And there were different moments where you're using language that, to me, identifies that you are choosing to reinforce certain ways of thinking in yourself by use of language. And so I'm noticing this.
I love how you said that. Yes, Terence, this is exactly what I'm doing.
This is exactly what you're doing. That was because I also do it for myself.
I know that in you.
That it's a fundamental part of a man being able to claim responsibility of his life. Yeah. I'd love for you to speak a little bit about the impact that the change of your language has had on you.
Yeah, thank you for asking. It's through asking that question, you're also supporting me in realizing the work that I've done and how my recovery from major depression happened. And the first thing is that I realized is the concept that I'm the creator of my life. And so the situation that I was in, I wanted to blame it on someone else or other people's circumstances. And then when I took responsibility for putting myself in that situation, for creating that situation, it changed everything. And so what happened is I switched from victim mindset to empowered mindset. Like I said, I used this to put myself at rock bottom. Instead of saying, oh, this happened and I will reach the rock bottom. It's like, no, I did that. And therefore, if I take responsibility for my actions, then I have the power to create the life that I want. So if I have a scooter accident, and instead of saying someone crashed into me, saying I got myself into an accident, then I can see, what did I do to create that? Did I drive too fast? Was I not paying attention? But also, and it's also taking responsibility. When I started taking responsibility over the failures in my life, I started taking responsibility also for the successes in my life, which highly contributed to developing a healthier sense of self-esteem. And so, because if I blame others for the problems in my life, I'm outsourcing. I'm saying something else is responsible for what's happening. So therefore, if I have a victory in my life, if I have a big win, I won't take the credit for it. I'll say, oh, I was in the right place at the right time, and I got lucky, or things like that, rather than acknowledging what I did to contribute to that.
Beautiful. I have long been saying that one of the most essential steps, and maybe the only step, and it's an ongoing process for me in becoming a man, in really owning manhood, which I'll freely admit is a destination that I imagine I won't reach in this lifetime. It's a process.
And becoming a man?
To really become fully integrated, the full integrated man concept of an actualized king, of actualized warrior, like it's a process. So I stepped into manhood, and manhood is the journey to becoming a man. And it's a journey without destination for me. I become more and more integrated as a man as I go along, is maybe a better way to put it. That the key attribute of that, the guide that I invite in on my journey, is the claiming of responsibility for my life and everything in it. There is no more outside of me that has the responsibility for what happens in my life. At some level, I am responsible for everything. The moment I was born, the moment I will die, every event that happened in my life, every success, every failure, every accident. If a meteor hits this planet and I get wiped out, there is a level of me that must claim responsibility for it because it is part of my creation.
That's an interesting one. I'd love to riff on that, but I feel I'd go on a more spiritual tangent.
So identifying
this life.
Identifying the various depths of claiming responsibility, and if I look at the king archetype, and the fully actualized king archetype, I believe, is egoless. He may still have an ego operating, but he is surrendered unto divine will that operates through him. He is no longer an individuated part of the whole. He is the whole acting as a single point of consciousness within himself.
Absolutely. So can I speak to that? My understanding was, when we are accessing the king energy, we kind of, from a spiritual term, channeling divine order of the cosmos onto this earth. And this is the function when you have an actual king in the world who creates the structure of society, who defines the roles of people, and maybe who codifies the laws, etc., creating that. And when, I don't know if you're complete with what you just said, but then I'd love to talk about the concept of being integrated, and can I be fully integrated in this lifetime versus having moments of that.
To complete the last concept is just to say that as I journey along this process, I may reach certain plateaus. I'm going to answer both questions.
Nice.
I may reach certain plateaus where I feel integrated in a body of work that I've been doing, yet the journey continues on. I might have a viewpoint, a vista that I get to look on if there was a mountain of self that I was ascending. I reach that plateau, I get that experience of a new level of integration, and then the journey continues on. And the recognition is that as I've met certain plateaus, the recognition of deeper levels of responsibility start to become aware to me. I become aware of them. That whereas it was just taking responsibility for what I do, my actions, that's taking responsibility for all of the events that have happened in my life. Then taking responsibility for all of the thoughts that come to me, the dreams that I have at night, and then claiming responsibility maybe for the events that are happening outside of me. Like if there is an accident in my family, and then claiming the responsibility of saying, I must have created this because I am now suffering. I've created this for me to be able to connect deeper to myself here.
Yes. I was thinking, like, how did I create, if you're thinking, someone in my family, let's say there's a death in my family, taking responsibility on that, I was like struggling with that concept, thing, like, I don't know how that fits for me. However, what I do, where I'm aligning with you, is also taking responsibility for the experience that I'm having. So for example, something happens and then I'm having emotions around it, I have a story around it, and then I put myself in a situation because that happened, taking responsibility for that. What I like to do is more taking responsibility for my response to everything that is happening. So let's say something happens, something terrible happens, then I have a choice. I could take offense, which is different from, I am not offended. I'm not a victim of what other people say. And like, Terence, you just said something. You offended me. You didn't do anything. You spoke. And then I can say, I take offense. I decide. I am empowered to choose my mental reaction to that. I decide to take offense. Or I feel emotions. I feel sad. I feel triggered. I feel tension. So this is merely happening. And I can take responsibility for it and really own my experience, which is what I believe I heard from you. Something like that.
I'll go to a deeper level of what I...
Let's go to a deeper level.
And it comes out of something that is a fairly common phrase in spiritual circles, that there is only one. There is only one presence here. We are all one. Mm-hmm. We are all connected.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to take that literally, and from the perspective, and I have had experiences where I have dissolved as a being, as an entity that has a separate same personality. And so what I feel is I've revealed to myself as Terence a deeper truth, which is that there is only me here in multitude of forms. And if I was to take a drop of water out of the ocean and to say, this is a single drop, that would be Terence. But when I put that drop back into the ocean, where is Terence then? And if I have remembered myself as the ocean and retained the remembering of being the ocean as a drop, what of me that is happening around, whether it's me dying over there and me here getting to experience me dying over there, whether it's me as an asteroid coming down and hitting this planet and destroying all life on this planet, is all me. So from that perspective, and if you've had that experience as well, are you ready to claim responsibility for everything that you witness and experience? Because is it not true that it is all you?
I love where this is going. Okay, I refrain from going over there earlier on. Let's go into it now. Yeah, so the claim that everything is one and the experience of everything is one through the experience of ego dissolution. Yeah, I had once a complete and absolute ego dissolution, and where I had the experience of everything that all the spiritual leaders, teachers, gurus say. It was all happening for a long time. And I would go even, the way I like to phrase it is, instead of it's all me, when I say it's all me, I tend to identify with this body that has a name, a shape, a weight, a color, etc. Whose name here is Eric. The way I see it is, all there is awareness. That's all there is, awareness. And I actually wrote it on my mirror, and I counted the days I wanted to tell myself every day at every moment this sentence: I am infinite awareness having an experience. And so if all there is infinite awareness, what am I aware of right now? Oh, I can see herons in this field. I'm aware of that. Feel that I'm in a body. I'm in your living room. I'm in front of another person. And this awareness is basically creating an experience for itself. I am experiencing myself through the illusion of separation. So I get to observe you, and I'm observing myself. I love positioning myself in that situation. You are me, and I get to see, okay, so who am I? And I get to dig into who's Terence, and I'm discovering more of myself. However, very often I'm not there. Very often I have this very human experience where this person has an agenda for his day. He's got things to do, responsibilities to take and to fulfill, etc. When I'm from a perspective of I'm infinite awareness having an experience, I generally feel that there's nothing to do. There's just being. That's where I feel I'm enough. Nothing to do, nothing to complete, nothing to access. All this is completely enough.
And on that note, let's wrap it up. Yeah, let's complete that. That's the starting point for me. Great question for me is, how do I allow for both to be true simultaneously?